Hi guys, sorry I've been missing for a while, but we're just going to get straight into it.
Jones plunging up more than 350 points, 375 points right now, continuing its biggest drop since early 2016. We're going to discuss what's behind this dramatic fall. It's down more than 700, 800 points over the last several days. We'll watch this very closely. But what is the president saying about it? We'll be right back.
So the Dow Jones is continuing to drop at the time where these Republicans and Donald Trump have been saying how the economy is doing so good. And, you know, I've talked about this before, where it seems suspicious that the economy is being touted as being on the rise and doing so well, yet companies are closing stores all over the place, including Walmart, and CEOs are stepping all over the place, including over 21 CEOs, which I went through in a list in one of my previous videos. It seems that no one's really clocking on to the fact that I say no one, but obviously we are, but in terms of the mainstream media and, you know, the talking heads, they don't appear to be addressing the fact that these CEOs have stepped down and these stores are closing all over the place. And they say that the economy is doing well. Yeah, as we can see now, the economy is not necessarily on a downturn, but the Dow Jones seems to be indicating that the bubble has or is about to burst. We'll see in the next coming days if that trend continues. But that comes after the Dow plunged 666 points 2 or 3 days ago. I saw this when it came out and I wanted to do a report on it straight away, but I didn't want to just do a report on just the one thing, so I kind of waited, and I'm glad I did because I can see now that the trend has continued. What's striking to me is obviously the number 666, the Antichrist. It says to me that, well, one thing I've asked myself is, why 666? Why not 665, as it says there, which it actually isn't, it's 666. Why not 594 or 432, something? Why another number, something different? It had to be 666 that the Dow Jones plunged by in terms of points, and that has continued to plunge day by day. And according to the mainstream media reports, not sure exactly what's driving it, but from my perspective, I feel, as I've mentioned before, that these big corporate companies and these CEOs and stuff, they're in the know. So when you see the market starting to go down, expect something to follow after that. Maybe something to do with North Korea, maybe something to do with Israel, maybe something to do with the government shutdown, maybe something to do with DACA, maybe something to do with a potential 9/11 attack or 9/11 style attack. Really don't know what it's specifically indicating, but the fact that it jumped down by 666 points and continues to go down says to me that we need to watch for in the near future, as we have been and will continue to do. Then we move on to Russia. Again, Russia is kind of really pushing its boundaries in terms of military provocations, confrontations, and escalations. NATO military jets from US, Germany, and Denmark have been deployed to the Baltic Sea amid rising tensions with Russia. This was after US P-8A Poseidon aircraft dubbed the submarine killer was deployed from RAF Milden in Suffolk. A German P-3C Orion reportedly departed from Nordholz naval base in Lower Saxony. A Danish CL-600 Challenger took off from Aalborg Air Base in Northumbria. I can't even say that word. Terrible. It is thought that the planes have been sent to a task area of the northern coast of Poland near Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad, a Russian enclave annexed from Germany by the Soviet Union after World War II, is situated along the coast and has been called the most dangerous place in Europe. Now, a Russian Cu-27 intercepted a US EP-3E Ares II surveillance aircraft over the Black Sea in an exchange that lasted over 2.5 hours, and apparently that exchange came to within 5 feet. So I've seen the video, and it appears that the Russian jet kind of crossed in front of the American jet, just 5 feet away, and obviously the jet wash from the back of the Russian jet caused the American jet some problems. So NATO scrambled some of its jets from various different NATO countries to obviously push back against Russia. But this is an escalating theme with Russia. They're having their spy ships just off the east coast of America. They're having their submarines passing through the English Channel, very, very close to the UK territory. They're pushing themselves in the Black Sea and the Baltic. So, you know, while a lot of focus has been drawn onto North Korea and Iran and China, we've kept our eyes on Russia at the same time. But I think it's important that we keep our eyes even more so on Russia, because obviously if the claims about the presidential election are true, then Russia are really on the offensive, cyber-wise, cyber attacks, ground, sea and air. So we'll see what happens again, you know, in the next coming weeks. This leads me on to Hamas. Hamas believes war with Israel will break out in the next coming days. I have no way to verify the information apart from the obviously escalating tensions that have been going on over there in the Middle East. But the Hamas and other Palestinian organizations believe there is a 95% chance, so that's quite high, that Israel will launch a war as part of an IDF exercise in southern Israel in the coming days, according to a report published by Al Hayat on Sunday, quoting sources from various factions in the Gaza Strip, including leader Yahya Sinwar. Now, obviously, that draws my mind into the IPEC GOAT video, where we see the 3 planes attack what appears to be a mosque, resulting in, I'm assuming, various deaths, but one death was shown as a child's death, which then leads to what looks like nuclear war or potentially a volcano erupting, one of the two. So the timeline is what we're in now. Obviously, we haven't quite entered the year of the dog, which is on February the 15th, one day after Valentine's Day, which is another watch day because there's various references to hearts and love and sex in the IPEC GOAT video. So I'm going to keep my eyes on Valentine's Day especially. And following that, the 15th, which is the Chinese New Year, the Yin Yang, the Wushu Year of the Dog, and the day of the Shining Star, I believe it is. So there's a lot going on the 14th, 15th, 16th of February, and I'll be keeping my eyes open around that time. And obviously, if nothing happens, then further analysis is needed on my part. So we'll see what happens. But obviously, Israel, in terms of what Hamas is saying about Israel potentially launching a war in the next couple of days, the Israeli Navy is on high alert over upgraded Hamas underwater terror threats. So, as the war drums beat on Israel's southern front, Israel's Navy sees an increased threat from the serious developments by Hamas in the underwater domain. Hamas sees potential in the sea, like they saw potential in their tunnels. Israel's Navy has in recent years understood sea-based terror attacks can also come from under the water, a threat that has grown since the last conflict with Hamas in 2014. During Operation Protective Edge, 5 Hamas frogmen tried to infiltrate Kibbutz Zikim before they were engaged and killed by the IDF. In the last 3 years since the conflict, Hamas has significantly expanded their naval commando unit with a reported 1,500 frogmen. And again, that draws me back to the IPEC GOAT video, because when we're seeing the blue guy dancing around the fire, one of the masks he wears is a frog mask, and that could be in reference to frogmen. And that could obviously be this story that we're looking at now with Hamas and his frogmen trying to infiltrate Israel. So there's a lot going on. In terms of the masks that the blue man wears, you got the frog mask, which could be related to these frogmen. You've got the bear mask, which I believe is related to Russia. And you've got the bird mask, which I believe is related to the Jushi bird from North Korea. That kind of spans all the adversaries of America and the European countries, just in terms of visualization. Just given the masks kind of gives you all those different aspects. So there's something to watch out for. if this event is coming in the next coming days, we've still got the SpaceX Heavy Falcon launch on the 6th of February. We've still got the significant North Korean event to take place on the 8th of February. We've still got the start of the Winter Olympics on the 9th of February. As I've said, we've still got Valentine's Day on the 14th, the Day of the Shining Star on the 15th, the Wuzhu Year of the Dog again on the 15th, the Chinese New Year, as I've mentioned, going on to the 18th, I believe it is the Chinese Day of the Sun, or the North Korean Day of the Sun. Can't remember which one the Day of the Sun belongs to. But there's a lot of events happening, not to mention on the 8th of February, also another potential government shutdown, which could lead to all sorts of chaos if it doesn't end quickly. So we'll see. Again, that's all I can really say about these things. We'll see, because this is all hypothesis. There's no confirmations of these things happening, but just looking at the reports and the little details, and always keeping the iPad GOAT video in mind, it seems like things might be, getting closer and closer as they happen, as time moves on. Then we've got unmanned submarines. So Russia's not the only one meddling with unmanned submarines and submarine drones. The US DARPA, or the Defense Research Agency, is also into the drone type technology in reference to submarines. So developed through the agency's anti-submarine warfare continuous trial unmanned vessel program, the boat christened Sea Hunter is at the heart of efforts to deploy a new type of unmanned surface vessel that could autonomously track enemy submarines over thousands of miles at a fraction of current costs. So my apologies, it's not a submarine, it's a surface vessel, so a ship, but unmanned, a drone, one that can track submarines. And it just begs the question as to why they're delving into this technology so much, all these different countries. Understandable from a life perspective to reduce military casualties, but at the same time, we all know that technology is hackable. So you put a drone out there, you might have the best security at that time, but a couple of months later, someone could have developed a hack for it. As always happens, man builds one thing, another man finds a way to get around that thing that's been built, like a wall, you've got a ladder. Security cameras can be hacked, phones can be hacked, TVs can be hacked, computers can be hacked. So I would apply the same conditions to military drones, even though their security will be, most likely top level. As we've seen, these things aren't 100% secure. So I think it's dangerous to be putting these things out there. And not only is Russia and the US doing it, but as you would expect, China is also doing it. But they're taking it a step further to include artificial intelligence. So this is a submarine, a nuclear submarine, that could have its own thoughts. Why a submarine would need to think, I really don't know. But a senior scientist confirmed that China is building artificial intelligence-powered nuclear submarines that can think for themselves. According to a researcher involved with the program, who requested anonymity due to the sensitive nature of the project, the AI-augmented submarine with its own thoughts would reduce the commanding officer's workload, eliminate human error, and give China's Navy a competitive edge in underwater battles. So it really is going for the submarine thing. The submarine issue has popped up massively in the last couple of months and continues to escalate. And obviously, I think once the land has been attacked with nuclear weapons, the war doesn't end, because the war then is at sea, and each country has multiple submarines out there, and they're hard to track, they're hard to destroy, not impossible, but difficult. And it just says to me that their whole plan in terms of submarines is the fact that they know that land-based military is going to be pretty much unusable after if it comes to a nuclear war, after a nuclear weapon is detonated, the land is pretty much, gone in terms of fireballs, radiation, all that kind of stuff. It becomes unusable. So submarines appear to be the way to go. My concern is that they're not investing all this money into finding ways of solving issues diplomatically and peacefully among each other, but rather using the money to build more and more deadly, devastating weapons that could destroy hundreds of millions of people within hours, So it's quite concerning. At the same time, Israel has just installed a tsunami warning system. A radar-based early tsunami warning system is currently being installed in 3 locations along Israel's coastal plain in Haifa, Ashdod, and Hadera, dispersed so as to cover the entirety of Israel's Mediterranean coastal strip. I don't think I need to read it anymore, because at the end of the day, we know that Israel and Britain, America, they've got pretty good intelligence. And the fact is, you don't go about doing things, spending millions of pounds and installing systems if you don't think there's a credible threat. So what this says to me is that Israel believes there is a credible threat of a tsunami, coming their way, and that they're taking preventive measures in terms of installing the tsunami warning system. Obviously, Hawaii's always had a tsunami warning system. They're, quite susceptible to tsunamis, but you've got tsunami warning systems being thought about in the UK as well. As I mentioned in the earlier report, the British government is now making plans for a mega tsunami to strike the coast of the UK. The US has been preparing for it. Japan's already prepared for it. So you can see these countries that don't usually have any sort of concerns about tsunamis, like the UK and Israel, actually installing tsunami warning systems and preparing themselves for this. Considering it's a topic that we've been talking about quite a lot over the last couple of months, it seems like it's a credible concern, especially since these governments are now taking preventive measures against that specific type of threat. And that just brings me on to the last story, which is the Russian drone that we talked about, the nuclear drone that can carry a 100 megaton warhead, could be used to swamp cities with a 500-foot tsunami, which is one of the theories I talked about when I was talking about the nuclear drone, that it could possibly be, directed into the Babylon Canyon that's off the coast of New York and detonated, causing the fracture in the earth to widen and generating a tsunami. But now we've got, an actual report that says coastal cities and enemy ports could be left uninhabitable for up to 100 years. The device, armed with a 100 megaton hydrogen bomb, has previously been rumored in a Russian TV leak. In a leaked copy of the Trump administration's nuclear posture review, the Pentagon confirmed this month that the device, codenamed Kanyon, is under development. Kanyon is a nuclear-armed autonomous torpedo armed with a 100 megaton hydrogen bomb as its payload, nearly twice as powerful as any nuclear bomb ever tested. It would swim towards its target like a submarine, meaning that it could not be stopped by anti-missile systems. It would be detonated under the water, swamping enemy ports and coastal areas in a radioactive tsunami up to 500 feet high, experts believe. Affected areas could be left uninhabitable for up to 100 years. Defense analyst H.I.S. Sutton told Futurism the unclassified posture review document doesn't really tell defense analysts anything new, but it does establish Kanyon as a military fact. Until now, many observers had regarded the system as fake news. I think that this was partly because the stated specifications are so incredible, and partly because it's hard to understand how it will be used. But there's the hypothesis of how it would be used: detonated, generating a 500-foot tsunami off of whatever coast they choose to do it. And not only that, but it could be a nuclear tsunami, therefore carrying radioactive particles in the water with it, which would obviously kill more people in terms of long term, especially if there's any sort of effect on the electric power grid, and water sanitation sites are unable to clean the water. People will end up starting drinking dirty water like they are in Puerto Rico. I feel like Puerto Rico was a test or an example of what would happen to people who are left without electricity for a sustained amount of time, forced to drink dirty water, and with basic shelter and accommodation unavailable, medical help again unavailable. So that's the end of my report, and I just want to point out these things that are going on, especially in reference to the stock market falling 666 points and continuing to fall after that. The Russian threat in terms of what they're doing with their submarines and their fighter jets, and how they keep on encroaching on other countries' territories, kind of, probing the responses from the different countries. Then you've got Hamas saying that Israel plans war in the next couple of days. Israel kind of looking like it's responding in terms of its navy, talking about these frogmen, which draws parallels to the IPEC GOAT video, the unmanned submarines from Russia, China, and the US, the tsunami warnings that Israel are putting on their beaches, and the Russian drone that's capable of carrying a 100 megaton warhead and possibly generating a 500-foot tsunami along the coast of any particular city, it feels like. And that's the crazy times we live in. So, keep the prayers, keep the faith. And with that, I'll just say good morning, good afternoon, good night, and God bless.